Okay, in part one of the Enabling Parents series, I talked about the drama that a woman was having with her daughter regarding her grandchildren and gave some other examples of how parents enable their adult children and teenagers to be dependent and silly, irresponsible, entitled, and manipulative. It's basically an all bad situation for the parents who just do too much. So people were writing me, it's like I recognize myself in some of the situations that you were talking about, but I really struggle with how I could do what you suggest. And I understand that because a lot of parents feel guilt. Sometimes they feel guilty because they had their children very young and they were still children themselves. So they were very irresponsible and kind of silly, and they dumped their kids on their mother and whoever would watch them. So they're basically repeating a cycle. And since they feel guilty because they did that with the same child who's now dumping, her or his kids on them, they don't feel like they really have the right to say no. Okay, that's one aspect. There's also the generational dependency established by people, what they used to call, the welfare cycle. Somebody gets pregnant and has a baby, then they get on welfare. And then when that person has children, they get 16, 17, whatever, 18. They get on welfare separately. They get an apartment. They just so there's this mentality that the government is going to take care of you. And when that kind of mentality permeates your thinking, you also expect other people to do the same thing. Well, whether that's your parents or anybody you can dump your kids on, you do the same thing. Some parents also have this thing where they want to feel needed. I mean, some people call it the empty nest syndrome. I don't even know if I would go that far because most of the time they have younger children, so the nest isn't in nowhere near empty. But these people feel this obligation to take care of adult children, even though those children can take care of themselves. They're not really cutting the apron ties, the umbilical cord, whatever. They want to keep those children as infantilized as possible, so that these parents feel that they're needed. They feel like they have a purpose, a direction, something to do, a reason to live, and they put all that responsibility on their children. And finally, there are people that really they think they don't want their grandchildren to suffer. So they feel like if they turn their back on their child, that the grandchildren would suffer and that they were innocent, they had nothing to do with it, blah, 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 blah. So they end up stepping in. And I totally understand all of those feelings. I do. But I have to tell you, as a parent, our job is to, of course, cushion our children when they hit a crisis. Our job is not to take care of them over some bullshit just because they want us to. Now, there's a difference. So, what is a crisis? Let me define that. Okay, your child is working working responsible, doing everything they're supposed to do, and your child gets into a really bad car accident and can't work for a year, going through surgeries and rehab, possibly even longer. They may have some kind of insurance, but at some point it may run out. What are they going to do to survive until they can get back to work? Well, parents with the means will usually step in and cover that gap until that child is back on his or her feet. They'll help with the grandchildren. They'll help with the household bills. They'll do whatever they need to do till that, because they know that that child is going to be back on his or her feet. And this is just a temporary stopgap emergency measure. The same thing like if somebody decides that they need to battle with cancer, or their child comes down with some kind of debilitating disease and only one of the parents can work because they need to take care of the kid. Well, a lot of families will kind of gather the wagons and circle around that, and everybody chip in money and time and food and whatever to help out those family members. Those kind of things are crises. That's a crisis. Or like a house burns down, for instance. They lose everything, don't have any place to stay. Well, of course, you open your home to them if you have the space. You feed them, you clothe them, they're in shock. They just lost everything. They may even have some wounds or some need medical treatment. There's all kind of things that happen that cause a crisis. And of course, you as a loving family member would step in and help in those situations. But let me tell you about some shit I heard today. This woman, son, was doing drugs, right? So the son comes crying to her, "Mama, mama, if I don't get these drug dealers $50,000, they're going to kill me." Now, the bitch that I am, I would have been like, "Okay, what you telling me for? Did I tell you to go fuck around with the drug dealers? No, so get the hell out of here." I mean, I don't, don't bring on that shit to my house. That's what I would have told him. And people are like, "Well, that's so cold." It's like, oh, well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't use the drugs. I told you never to use the drugs. You decided to do that anyway, so that was your decision. That is your decision, and you're going to be the only one who suffers the repercussions of your stupid ass decision. I'm not suffering for you. Not going to happen. Last time I did that was when you busted out of my vagina. So there will be no more suffering for me behind your ass, especially after you're 18 years old. You're grown now. Handle it. But what this lady did was she took out a loan on her home that she owned. She gives the money to the drug dealer. The son goes right back to using drugs. He ends up shot and killed anyway. Since she couldn't make the notes, because, he was supposed to be helping her pay it, right? She couldn't make these payments, these increased payments, so she ended up losing the home. So she lost her home, she lost her son, all behind being some kind of enabler for a fucking drug addict. There's no way in hell that would have been me. I've heard several different stories. Like today, I also heard a story of a man whose daughter lives with him, and she's, like drives for Uber or some shit. And, he's like, she's like stressing him out, and this dude is like in his 80s. So at some point, he's like consulting like what he should do. He may have to, get the sheriffs and whatnot to evict the girl from her own father's house because she doesn't know how to act. She has a sense of entitlement. She pays no rent. She doesn't cook. She doesn't clean. She does nothing to contribute to the household whatsoever. And that's a frequent song that I hear with y'all. You got your kids living with you, but you don't make them do shit. They don't pay any bills. They don't do anything. And then they had a nerve to complain about what's for dinner and why didn't you, make this and why are my clothes clean and stuff like this. And y'all listen to that stuff. See, I don't understand that. I don't understand that kind of mentality for, for handling your children. It's like you have no boundaries with them. And, boundaries are necessary. I mean, not only are they necessary for your child to get along with you and family, they're necessary for your child to learn to get along with the rest of the world. I think the failure to teach children boundaries and self-restraint is one of the problems that we have in the black community. There's no reason in this world why, if a boy understood boundaries, that he would go up to random women and grab on them. See, you didn't teach your son how to fucking act. He should never think that putting his hands on someone that he doesn't know is appropriate behavior and that that's okay. Cussing at a woman because she didn't give you her phone number to you is likewise a boundary that you should have learned from your parents on how to handle. You should understand how to handle rejection. You should understand the need to work in order to get what it is that you want in life. You have to put forth some effort. All these kind of things you guys are not teaching your children. And so it's creating this whole generation, and we're actually in the second generation now, these millennials and whatever's after that, Generation X or before that or whatever. I mean, these self-entitled little pompous just jerks. That's what we have. So you got all these people with like 35 and under that really seriously don't know how to take responsibility for themselves, and they don't know how to act and respect other people. And you overly permissive parents did that. You did that. You created this monster by not checking your fucking kids and teaching them something. So then you have this, this thing. Let's say, how can you know that you are the kind of parent that does too much for your kid? How can you recognize that you're an enabler? Well, there's 5, 6, 7, I don't know. We can count them as I tell you what they are. Okay. One of the chief things that enabler parents do is they ignore their own needs and sacrifice for their child. Example, the woman I just told you about who got a loan on her house to pay her son's dealer. And then she ended up losing her house. Okay, she ignored her safety and security. She's an older woman. She can't go back and earn all that money again and rebuy that house because the price for real estate in California has gone up 20 times since she bought that house. So she lost out. She lost a very valuable piece of real estate with a big yard, something that they don't really have that much anymore. And, all behind her drug dealer son. So you sacrifice, people will give up their rent, they will give up their mortgage, they will get seconds on their house, they will sacrifice their vehicles because they're giving them to somebody who they know who doesn't have a driver's license, doesn't have insurance, and doesn't have any money to pay for the damage that they do. You let these people stay at your house knowing that they're drug users, and they steal your shit, they sell your shit for drugs. There's a whole litany of things I could rattle off, but the bottom line is you're putting that person's needs for whatever it is that they're talking about over your own security and safety and property and peace of mind. That is a codependent enabler if I ever saw one. Okay, another thing that y'all do is you do more work to make sure that your child is successful than your child does. Okay, you be like looking for jobs for your kid, putting in resumes for your kids, calling jobs and setting up appointments for your kids, of which they never show up. You buy your kid a suit. You may give your son money to go get his haircut, or your daughter to get her hair done, and stuff like that. You do everything for them, including working overtime at your job to have more money to give them. And they're not putting forth even half that much effort for themselves. You need to stop doing that. You're creating a really, really, really bad situation and a useless person. They're not going to be no good to nobody, especially to themselves. You also may spend a lot of time thinking about how to fix their problems. I get a lot of letters to my advice column like that. Women writing in talking about, well, he does this and he does that. How can I help him? How can I fix this? How can I change it? And I'm very quick to tell them, you not the motherfucker that has this problem. So you don't need to write me about this. He does. Go sit down somewhere. Shut the fuck up. But they don't understand that. You can't fix everything for your child. They have to fix stuff for themselves. That's part of being an adult. And you want to continue to treat them like they're toddlers in diapers. That just never works out. Sometimes you ladies, you will have a problem in your marriage or relationship because of your enabling of your child. I've talked to several guys who had women, they have these teenage boys or adult boys that the women let live in the house, and the man is seeing this, right? He's seeing that the guy is like not working, he's not doing nothing, he's sitting around playing video games, farting and scratching and eating up all the food and watching TV all day. But he's not doing anything, he's not working, he's not in school, he's not doing anything productive whatsoever. So the men are of the mind, well, you need to kick him out and make him do something with himself. The women are like, no, that's my baby, I can't do it. And the guys, end up breaking off the relationship, and sometimes people even get a divorce because the father can't stand to see the son act like, being treated like that. And the mother siding with him and protecting him like he's just some little bitch-made toddler. You may also tolerate disrespect. I kind of mentioned this in the first video. Sometimes your kids cuss at you. They want to get in your face. They want to take your stuff and sell it. They want to put their hands on you, punch, slap, twist arms, shove, whatever. You tell them not to do something, they do it anyway in your house. You tell them to do something, they don't do it in your house, but they living in your house. See, these are the kind of disrespectful things a lot of parents just shrug and they just talk, they just handle it. They just they handle it and accept it. And if somebody tells you to, what to do to make sure that situation does happen as it should, you get resentful at them. You don't get resentful at your child. It's very interesting how this happens. Another way is you guys step forward and you pay for everything. I've even heard situations where mothers, okay, like their son got some baby, right, by some baby mama, and she go takes him to court, and they meet him to pay child support. His mother will pay his child support. Excuse me? Where they do that at? But I know this firsthand. I've seen this. So, these mothers are setting their sons up to be irresponsible and silly, and they don't even understand what they're doing. The boy's not going to be any use to anybody. Um, Another way that parents are enablers is like, say you are, and this goes for girlfriends too. Let me hurry up and slide this in here. This is not only parent child, this is wife and husband, this is girlfriend and boyfriend. And y'all, this tends to be women more so than men. That's why I'm focusing on it. You ladies have this mentality that you need to help these men, that you need to guide them and support them and nurture them and do all this stuff for them, and yet you turn around and say, well, this is my king and this is my leader and I'm gonna submit to him and he's the head of the household. How does that work? You got somebody who's a weak punk ass bitch, drunk, high, stupid, I mean crazy, whatever, but yet you want to promote him to king and have him lead and all this old shit. See, I don't understand that mentality. There's something wrong with you. And I have to say it's something wrong with you because you should be looking at reality, not what you wish it was. He's incapable of leading. He can't even lead himself. He's a drunk. He's a druggie. He's an unemployed bum. And yet you want him to lead you? Why? Why? What's wrong with you? So, I don't know. A lot of you make excuses. Somebody did try to talk about your dude or his job calls and he's not at work, or, his parents on his case. Or you make excuses for him. You try to cover for him. Well, it's not that bad. Well, he didn't mean to. Well, this and that happened. Well, blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, yeah, he did that shit. That motherfucker's trifling as all hell. That's what you should say. But that's not what you want to do. So those are just a few examples of, some of the kind of things. I'm sure you can think of your own of, ways that you have enabled your children by doing too much for them. Now, how can you stop? Oh, children and your men, your husbands, your boyfriends, whatever. How can you stop doing that? I think this is the part where most people struggle. Most women struggle the most. They don't seem to know how to make the dude stand on his own. Well, the way to make him stand on his own is you back up. You know how they do that thing where they say, oh, well, all the volunteers step forward, and then everybody steps back, and then leaves one person up at the front. That's what you need to do. Take a step back. Leave him, or in some cases her, up at the front line so they can go through the gauntlet by themselves. That's what needs to happen. You don't need to go through it for them or with them. They need to handle that themselves. So I think one of the best ways to do it, and I'm not sure how many of you are actually able to do this, but the best way to help your child is like if they call you and they have a problem, they want you to bail them out, they need some money. They want you to do a favor for them. They want all this stuff. The best thing that you could do for your child is to talk them through it. Now, my parents used to do this to us when we were really young, and it's one of the techniques that they use to teach us how to problem solve and to come to our own conclusions and to resolve issues for ourselves. And it's, logical thinking and analysis is a skill that all people should have. If you don't learn it at home, then they do actually have classes for it in some schools. But I really think it's best if you learn this kind of be thinking at home. So talking. Talk your kid through it. So they say, well, this is this is the situation, blah, 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 blah. So you say, okay, well, let's talk about what your options are and what resources are available to you to solve this problem. And, they will probably have some ideas. If they don't, you say, well, why don't you research it? Google is your friend. Research it, and then let's talk about it tomorrow or Tuesday or whatever you want to say, and I'll help you walk through it. You don't say you're going to do anything for them. You're not going to pay whatever it is. You're not going to do it for them. You're going to help them arrive at the answer on their own. It's a technique that psychologists and psychotherapists use. They just help you think it through, but you are the one who actually comes up with the solution, not them. Well, most of the time. I mean, sometimes people are too stupid to walk through it, and the doctor has to tell them. Otherwise, they'd be stuck in therapy for 10 years on the same issue. So they do have to occasionally step in. But in general, they want you to solve the problem yourself, and they just are there to help you learn how to do it or teach you how to do it. So, resources and solutions, options and possibilities, probabilities are what you want your child to think of. And, this guy told me a really interesting story today about his son. When his son started kindergarten, he said, they had a little lunch thing, and they have the juice boxes and, or the milk cartons, and they have the saran covered things and the fruit cups or whatever, the foil and the fruit cups. And his son, the kids didn't really know how to do it, so they had these what they called helpers in the cafeteria, going around helping all the little kids, eat their lunch by opening up these containers for them. So this guy said, he was there with his son the first day, and he noticed, what was going on and the struggle that was happening. So he went to his cafeteria at work, and he got, those little Mott's fruit cups or whatever with the little foil on it, and he got the little cartons of milk, and he got, he mimicked what was served at school, and even from down to the spork being in the plastic wrapper. He went to KFC or somewhere, and he, got 10 sporks and in the wrappers and took them home. So what he did was he sat there with his son, and he let his little boy, he taught him how to open all those things, and then he let him practice opening them by himself. So at 5, he was equipping his son with the tools to be independent at mealtime in kindergarten. You see what I'm saying? That's how you do your kids, so you don't want them to be codependent on you. You teach your children as a good parent to be independent, to think and do for self. That's what you're supposed to be there for. Too many of you are failing at this totally, just terribly, just a big fail. So he says the next day he took, they dropped the kid off at school, and he went up to the teacher and all those helpers and said, "Don't you dare help my son. He knows how to do it by himself. Even if it takes him a little longer to do it. I want him to do it by himself. He knows how to do it. Just trust that he knows how." And I had to, I had to just say, like, this is a parent with got the right idea. He does not want his son to be dependent and silly. So, the rest of you, can you figure out what it is that you're doing and what you have done and how much you're doing too much for your kids? Learn to set boundaries with them. Learn to say no. It's not your job to solve all their problems. It's their job. It's not your job to make them happy. It's their job. It's not your job to solve their problems for them. It's their job. You have to stop doing everything for them just because they're your children. I mean, just think about it. You're not going to be here for the rest, you know what I mean? You're not going to be here for the rest of their lives. Well, maybe, but in general, that's not what happens. Usually the children outlive the parent, and you want to make sure that your children are equipped to live in this world successfully without you, to be high achievers, successful, happy people. How are they going to do that if you constantly doing everything for them and treating them like they're still in Pampers? You have got to stop doing that. If you have any questions, you need any suggestions for how to navigate the change that you need to start today with how you relate to your adult children, feel free to write me. That's not a problem. You can write a private message through YouTube, or you can send an email to me at survivingdating@gmail.com. I try to answer every question that comes in to me, every communique, and it may take me a couple of days, but I do try to get to everyone and respond to every single question. That's been my thing over the last 20 something years. So anyway, I hope this is informative and kind of, turns a few lights on for you about how you can do better with your children. It's not too late if they're, just now in their adolescence or teens. It's not too late to start right now so that they don't grow up and be stupid. But if they're already adults, you can still change your relationship with them by setting up some boundaries and learning to say no. This is Deb Cooper from survivingdating.com signing out.